Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're diving into backup and recovery solutions, and well, things are getting a little interesting in that world.
Interesting is one word for it.
You guys have sent us some articles and research. Looks like you're really trying to stay ahead of the curve in IT, especially when it comes to Veeam and, well, the shadow of Broadcom looming large.
Yeah.
Veeam is a big name in data protection,
So it
right?
is, yeah.
Known for being super reliable.
Absolutely.
But they've also announced price increases coming in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this buzz going around wondering if they're taking a page out of Broadcom's playbook.
It's the question everyone's asking.
So that's what we're digging into today.
To understand why everyone's so worried, we need to look at how Veeam's pricing is changing, and also what Broadcom has done in the past.
So in the sources, it says Veeam is going from these multi-year licenses to annual subscriptions.
Right.
And apparently, this change is going to hit customers pretty hard.
Yeah. It's a trend we're seeing a lot in software, this move to get recurring revenue. But with Veeam, it's not just like, oh, prices are going up a little. It's a whole different way of paying, how much you pay and how often you pay.
Okay.
One of your sources talked about someone going from a 5-year subscription that was $10,000 AUD for 40 licenses to a yearly subscription that's $27,000 AUD for 100 licenses.
Wow.
Even though they're getting more licenses, over time, that's a massive difference in cost.
That's like switching from a mortgage to renting, right?
Exactly. Lower cost upfront with renting. But in the long run, you're paying way more.
Makes sense.
And this is where the Broadcom comparison comes in.
Okay.
One of the articles you sent talked about what happened after Broadcom bought Symantec.
Yeah.
Customers saw huge price hikes, and they lost the flexibility of those long-term licenses. Starting to sound familiar.
Yeah, I'm seeing the similarities. But is it fair to just assume Veeam is copying Broadcom? Could it be a coincidence?
Well, let's think about Broadcom's strategy for a second. They usually focus on those big enterprise clients, the ones with big budgets, often leaving smaller businesses behind.
Right.
They get rid of any long-term discounts to make sure they're getting that steady stream of income every year. And one of the articles pointed this out. They rely on the fact that their products are essential.
Meaning?
Their stuff so crucial to how businesses run that even if customers hate the prices, they're kind of stuck.
So they're taking a gamble?
They are.
But it could pay off big time.
Absolutely. Now, we can't know for sure what Veeam is thinking, but the timing of all this and the specific changes, they're definitely raising some eyebrows.
Yeah, for sure.
Veeam is a top solution, no doubt about it. But this could alienate a lot of users.
Especially those smaller businesses.
Especially them, the ones who are more sensitive to price changes.
So what are people saying
About all this?
Yeah. How are IT pros reacting to this potential shift?
Well, it's causing a lot of chatter, that's for sure. Sysadmins, IT managers, they're all looking at their options. Some are even thinking about completely changing their backup strategies.
And I'm seeing in these sources, they're not just sitting around and taking it. They're coming up with some pretty clever ways to deal with these possible price hikes.
Oh, yeah, for sure. One big thing we're seeing is this move toward diversification.
Diversification.
Instead of putting all their eggs in the Veeam basket, IT teams are checking out other providers.
Like who?
Rubrik, Cohesity, AvePoint. They're pricier, for sure.
Got it.
But they have features that are really attractive in today's IT world.
Such as?
Like easy API integrations, so you can automate a ton of tasks.
Okay.
And they're better with the cloud, which is crucial if you're going hybrid or cloud first.
So it's not just about the price tag. It's about finding the right tool that fits with everything else you've got going on.
You got it.
Now, what about the folks on a tighter budget? What are their choices?
Open source solutions are getting more popular, like Proxmox Backup Server.
Okay.
These give you a lot of flexibility. You can really customize them and avoid getting locked into one vendor.
Makes sense.
But there's a trade-off.
Always is.
These usually need more technical know-how to set up and manage. It's not just plug and play.
So it's like balancing cost savings with ease of use and control?
Exactly. And it looks like IT professionals are ready for the challenge. They're also getting better at negotiating.
Oh, tell me about that.
They're using quotes from competitors to push back against Veeam's pricing.
And is it working?
They're having some success, yeah. Vendors are often willing to negotiate if they see you're serious about switching.
So remember, you've got more power than you think.
Right. Knowledge is power.
Don't be afraid to use it.
IT folks are arming themselves with the info they need to navigate all these changes.
And you also sent us some stuff about IT teams adopting these hybrid backup models. What's that all about?
It's a clever strategy.
Okay.
They combine the security of keeping things on-site with the flexibility and affordability of cloud storage.
Like having your cake and eating it too.
Pretty much.
So they're diversifying not just who they work with, but how they back up their stuff too.
Yep, spreading the risk, making sure their data is safe no matter what.
Smart move.
It shows they're aware of how things are changing, how the threats are evolving. Nobody wants to be caught unprepared when it comes to data protection.
So Broadcom is a possible path for Veeam, but the question remains, are they really going that route? And if they do, what does it mean for the company down the line?
Big questions. The decisions they make now could have ripple effects throughout the whole industry.
Yeah.
Veeam, for all their strengths, this pricing move, well, it could create an opening for their competitors.
You think so?
Competitors who prioritize their customers and offer more flexible pricing.
I see what you mean.
Think about it. If you had two products that were pretty much the same, but one company was known for jacking up prices and the other was known for treating customers well.
I know who I'd choose.
Right. But we also have to remember something.
What's that?
Switching can be a pain. Even if customers are unhappy, moving everything to a new platform can seem like a huge hassle.
Yeah, that's true.
It takes planning, testing, and for many, the downtime and disruption aren't worth it, at least not immediately.
So they stick with what they know?
That's what Broadcom is counting on.
So even if you're not happy, you might not change.
Exactly. But is that a good strategy in the long run? I don't know.
Yeah.
If Veeam loses the trust of their users, it could backfire big time. Competitors will jump in with better offers, and even the most loyal customers might start looking elsewhere.
Okay, so we've talked about Veeam, Broadcom, and what IT pros are doing to adapt. But let's shift gears for a second. Let's talk about you, our listener. You're the one making decisions about your organization's backup and recovery. What are the key takeaways here? What should you be thinking about?
Don't get complacent. That's the biggest thing.
What do you mean?
Things are changing fast in the backup and recovery world. What worked a while ago might not be the best approach today.
So shake things up a bit.
Exactly. You need to be proactive, informed, and think strategically. Don't wait for a disaster to force your hand. Take the time now to look at your current setup, see what else is out there, and be ready to negotiate to get the best deal.
You know, like that example we talked about, the one with the massive price increase.
Yeah,
That could happen to anyone, but it doesn't have to.
exactly. Knowing what's going on is your best protection. The more you know about your options, the better decisions you can make. Decisions that protect your data and your budget.
So what can IT folks do right now to get ahead of the curve?
I'd say start by diversifying. Don't depend on just one vendor.
Okay.
Look at different options, including open source ones. And think about using a hybrid approach, combining stuff you keep on site with cloud solutions.
Spread things around.
Yeah, like a diversified investment portfolio. You don't want all your eggs in one basket.
Makes sense.
And when you're negotiating, remember, you have leverage. Use those quotes from competitors, highlight what you like about their prices and features, and be prepared to walk away if they're not giving you what you need.
So brush up on those negotiation skills. Know your worth.
Absolutely. And another important point, you don't have to do this alone. There's tons of information and support online, forums, communities, industry publications, you name it. Talk to your peers, consult experts, tap into that collective knowledge.
That's a great point. There's a whole support system out there. Ask questions, share your experiences. We're all in this together.
For sure. And at the end of the day, remember that technology is a tool. It's there to serve you, not the other way around.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to challenge the status quo, explore new possibilities, and find solutions that really work for your organization.
That's a powerful message. Don't just go with the flow. Be an active participant in shaping the tech that works best for you. Now, before we wrap things up, there's one last thing I wanted to bring up. We've talked a lot about the technical and financial side of backup and recovery, but what about the human element?
The human element.
Yeah. What about trust, loyalty, the kind of things companies like Veeam have built up over the years? What happens to that when they make moves like this?
That's an excellent point. A lot of companies forget about that.
Right.
They focus so much on making money in the short term that they forget they're dealing with real people, people who have feelings about the products they use.
Exactly. And in IT, where relationships and reputation matter so much, that human element can make or break you.
Absolutely.
If Veeam wants to stay on top, they need to think about how their decisions affect their customers' trust and loyalty.
It's a balancing act. Companies need to be profitable, sure, but they also need to build strong relationships to really succeed.
So it's not just about the numbers. It's about people. It's about building relationships based on trust, transparency, and respect.
Well said.
And I think that's a good place to stop for now. We've covered a lot today, but I hope you've learned some valuable things and that you feel more empowered to make good decisions.
I hope so too.
The future of backup and recovery is in your hands.
It really is. Veeam is at the top right now in terms of like how well it works and how reliable it is.
Yeah.
But this whole pricing thing, it could give their competitors a chance.
Oh, interesting.
Competitors who are, willing to be better to their customers and offer pricing that's not so rigid. Like imagine you've got two products that are basically the same.
Okay.
One company has a rep for hiking prices like crazy.
Right.
And the other one is known for being good to its customers.
Yeah, I know who I'd go with. But let's be real, switching can be a pain.
Huge pain.
Even if you're not happy, moving everything to a new platform is a big task.
It is. It takes a lot of planning, testing, and for a lot of companies, that downtime, that disruption, it's not worth it, at least not right away.
It's easier to just stick with what you know.
And that's what Broadcom is banking on.
So they're hoping that even if people are annoyed, they won't bother switching.
Pretty much.
But is that like a sustainable strategy? In the long term, I mean?
That's the million-dollar question. If Veeam loses the trust of their users, it could have a domino effect.
Oh, how so?
Competitors will see the opportunity and swoop in with better offers.
Right.
And even those super loyal Veeam fans might start to waver.
Okay, so we've talked about Veeam, Broadcom, and how IT people are dealing with all this. But let's bring it back to our listener for a sec.
Sure.
You're the one who's making decisions about your backup and recovery. So what's the big takeaway here? What should you be thinking about right now?
The biggest thing is, don't just assume everything is fine.
Don't be complacent, you mean?
Exactly. Don't be complacent. Things are changing fast in this world. What worked a while ago might not be the best way to do things now.
So you got to stay on top of things.
Exactly. Be proactive. Get informed. Be strategic. Don't wait for a disaster to happen before you make a change.
Yeah.
Take some time now. Look at what you're doing. See what else is out there. And be ready to negotiate. Get the best possible deal.
Like that example we talked about earlier, the one with the huge price increase.
Yep, that one. It can happen to anyone.
But it doesn't have to.
Not if you're informed. Knowing your options gives you power. You can make better decisions. Decisions that protect your data and your budget.
Okay, so what can IT professionals do right now to get ahead of all this?
I'd say start by diversifying. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Meaning?
Don't rely on just one vendor. Look at other options, including open source solutions. And think about using a hybrid setup. Combine stuff you keep on your own servers with cloud-based solutions.
So spread the risk.
Exactly.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Yep. And when you're negotiating with vendors, don't be afraid to play hardball.
Tell me more about that.
Use those quotes you get from competitors. Show them what you like about the other guy's prices and features. And if they're not willing to work with you, be ready to walk away.
So know what you're worth. Don't be afraid to negotiate.
Exactly. And another important point, you don't have to figure this all out on your own. There's a ton of information and support out there, forums, communities, articles, you name it. Talk to your colleagues. Ask the experts. Tap into that collective wisdom.
That's a good reminder. There's a whole network of support out there. Ask questions. Share your experiences.
We're all in this together.
Exactly.
And remember, tech is supposed to work for you, not the other way around.
It's a tool.
Don't be afraid to question things. Explore new options and find solutions that really fit your organization.
Don't just go with the flow. Find what works best for you.
Exactly. Now, before we wrap up this part of the discussion, there's one last thing I want to bring up. We've talked a lot about the technical stuff and the money stuff, but what about the human side of things?
Oh, that's interesting.
What about trust and loyalty? The kind of things companies like Veeam have built up over the years.
Right.
What happens to those relationships when they make these kinds of moves?
That's a great point. I feel like a lot of companies don't think about that enough.
They're so focused on the bottom line, on making a profit, that they forget they're dealing with real people. People who have feelings about the products they use.
That's true.
And in the IT world, relationships matter. Your reputation matters. Those things can make or break you. If Veeam wants to stay at the top, they need to be careful. They need to think about how their decisions affect how their customers feel about them, whether they trust them, whether they're loyal to them.
So it's a delicate balance.
It is. Companies need to make money, of course,
Yeah.
but they also need to build strong relationships with their customers. That's how you really succeed.
So it's not just about the numbers. It's about people. It's about building relationships based on trust, transparency, and respect.
Well said. That's a great point to end on.
Yeah, I think so too. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, but hopefully our listeners have learned some valuable things and that they feel more confident and empowered to make good decisions about their data.
That's the goal.
Because at the end of the day, the future of backup and recovery is in their hands. As we wrap up our deep dive today, is there one big question our listeners should be thinking about as they, navigate this whole world of backup and recovery?
I think the key question is, how do you balance protecting your data with keeping costs under control and without losing sight of innovation?
That's a tough one. It's not just about finding the cheapest solution or the one with all the bells and whistles.
Right.
It's about finding that perfect fit for your organization, for your needs and your budget.
It takes planning, research, and you got to be willing to adapt as things change.
Exactly. So it's about making smart choices, staying ahead of the game, and never losing sight of the big picture. After all, your data is crucial.
It is. Protecting it should be at the top of your list.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about today. Always a pleasure chatting with you.
Same here. Always a good conversation.
And for our listeners, if you want to dive deeper into this topic, we've got links to all the source material in the show notes.
Yeah, check those out if you want to explore further and draw your own conclusions.
And remember, the best way to stay ahead is to keep learning, keep asking those questions, and don't be afraid to challenge the status quo.
Couldn't agree more.
All right, folks, that wraps up our deep dive into Veeam, Broadcom, and the future of backup and recovery. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.